From the first day when Bruce Lee came around back in the early 70s, when I'm a Hitman was an old man fighting Japanese. Yes, he was fighting against the Japanese, took over with guns years ago. Bruce Lee was a martial artist with superior power. Little child got in the hands of Iron Hitman. Iron Hitman was protecting and fighting in Japanese. And they wanted to learn his secrets, how he got so good beating all the Japanese with ease. Iron Hitman would hit you over 100 times in pressure points with no stop. Fast hands, superior order of neck balance, and correct precision when you throw a punch. Hours and hours to beat you half to death. Now, when you go off and you put down Iron Hitman became a legend of the fighting style of on a whole different spectrum. Iron Hitman trained hours every day, every week, every year. He never stopped training to push his levels to breaking points. Iron Hitman can beat you for hours and hit you in pressure points. And what he did was he can fight that long. He trained it in the art of offense and self defense. I'm a Hitman was a master beyond recognition. When Bruce Lee first came about in mainstream media, I'm a Hitman was fighting. He deal with Japanese trying to learn the Chinese tradition, foundation, trying to take secrets from the Chinese martial arts. I'm a Hitman was the best at that time. I can't feud it today. He probably still the best now. If he still was fighting, he was an amazing fighter, a real one. He was fighting for real. Leaving his documents, his real story of Iron Hitman finally fought the leader of the Japanese army, the general. Excuse me, yes, I said that right. Chinese Kung Fu was better than Japanese Kung Fu. But Iron Hitman was a master of so many proportions of levels. Bruce Lee was a baby, but Iron Hitman was the master of deceit when it comes to everything you try to do. And feats he had was on a whole different level. Iron Hitman. So Iron Hitman beat the general and killed over 15 to 20 soldiers for the Japanese Empire and killed them. Now, when he did kill them, he came off and got shot, and they healed him over time. And Bruce Lee started growing and being a student. How do this make Bruce Lee a fighter? All for Bruce Lee was a fighter. He was training with Iron Hitman, fighting in the dojo gyms, doing kung fu, Jeet Kune Do. It was not called at that time, but over years, the development of Bruce Lee became to another level. So Bruce Lee fought in every aspect of martial arts inside the art of fighting. When you're inside the art of fighting and fighting with all the big time martial art leaders and going to tournaments, I'm a Hitman trained him to fight in tournaments. Not only that, made Bruce Lee do steep training from the art of self defense, the art of offense. Bruce Lee already had so many styles working as a kid because his little young experience messed with Iron Hitman. Our karate master had a crazy story with the Japanese army. So we go on, we move on to Bruce Lee to an older man. Bruce Lee never did believe in one kind of culture. He loved it, a different kind of culture. So his culture was teaching a lot of guys martial arts from kung fu from China to America. The embassy didn't like it, Bruce Lee doing kung fu and teaching the Americans kung fu. It was against their law, you like to say, their statute. They didn't like that Bruce Lee teaching people martial arts, the art of fighting. That was a no-no from the Chinese emissary. The Chinese emissary is to look over the whole Chinese country, something like Congress, like a mayor of some sort, or the big time Congress member that called America a logo. I like this, so to speak. We'll get to that another time. But Bruce Lee was looked after them, and they was going in, and he had to go through those guys to order to teach American kung fu. So when Bruce Lee came through in mainstream media making movies, Bruce Lee became an outlaw to his own country because what he was teaching to the Americans, they didn't like that him teaching Americans kung fu. So when we seen the kung fu was growing from whites to blacks to all iteration of people, Bruce Lee had to see the emissary. He got in trouble and he fought a top ranked Jeet Kune Do red belt or black belt, one of the biggest of them all. They say, if you beat me, you stop. And Bruce Lee said, if I win, I keep going. And they made a deal. Bruce Lee beat him, knocked him down, and knocked him all on his butt. Once he knocked him on his butt, he beat the guy. It wasn't easy. The guy was really an A player. He really could fight. But when he beat him, Bruce Lee bowed his head with honor and walked away. And the man got back up and kicked Bruce Lee in the back. Due to love from another iteration of someone else not look like you, to a white woman, we so to speak what we're saying. You go off, and she cared about him. She came to the hospital. Even, you know, Ivan Hitman gonna come. He took care of him since he was a boy. Ivan Hitman was his teacher. So when the time and time went on by, you saw Bruce Lee in a breathing machine, thought he was never gonna walk again. So with the high chi code, Bruce Lee learned to use high chi to energize himself, to boost himself to different proportions, to fight mind over matter. That's what high chi is, enter key, to deal with the spirit of pain. So when he did that, he went over controversy, getting out that wheelchair, and went back to martial arts, and did real well doing it too. Fought the pain after he got kicked in the spinal cord from a rear belt. They didn't like him, of course they didn't, because they broke the code, Bruce Lee, for teaching Americans kung fu. So Bruce Lee was in the city. Why did Bruce Lee make movies? Why did Bruce Lee did many things of the art of Enter the Dragons and the Chinese Connection and many more movies, Enter the Dragon, many more. He got so many. The reason why the America always worked on the systematic one thing, the Benjamin's money. He needed money for his family. If he didn't get money for his family, he would never be able to feed his family. What made Bruce Lee a real fighter? What did he was training so hard the way he did? Because he don't just act. He really was fighting in his early younger years. Even do till you look at Bruce Lee, by even do you doubt Bruce Lee fought, but he really fought and he became a master. You have Americans know a lot about his styles right now today. Even yours truly, yourself, you're talking to, you're looking at right now. No, Bruce Lee was doing fighting. Bruce Lee is a living martyr, a fighter. In cold words, everybody know the name Bruce Lee. Is the movies, of course. Is it real martial arts? He's most definitely is a real fighter. Ivan Hitman and him had hell before they revelate to create. They had to evolute, and he evoluted. And Chuck Norris came out and says Bruce Lee was lifting so much weight, messed up his back. He didn't let the medicine got in and kept training. This is how crazy Bruce Lee was about training and fighting. He loved it a lot. Me and him alike. I do crazy stuff too. Don't get me wrong. I do some real crazy stuff. And he took some medicine, but he wouldn't let the medicine heal him. So when he went to bed, finally rest, he had an attraction to his head. For all that pain. He didn't let his body rest and rejuvenate and heal and resonate in every order and aspect of your bones of your body. Rest in peace, Bruce Lee. Did he fall? Most definitely. Bruce Lee was fighting in gyms for years before he became a movie actor. Before you say Bruce Lee ain't a fighter, know your history, know your stuff. Take care of yourself and each other. Rest in peace, Bruce.